Hello and welcome to another episode of Baked Good. It's that time of year again, and today we'll be making some gingerbread. Alright, so we're going to start the gingerbread. This is my favorite gingerbread recipe because it doesn't have to go in the refrigerator. It can be rolled right out when you're finished with it. It's a recipe from an old Wilton book. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Wilton cake decorating method. I collect all their books because they have some wonderful recipes and wonderful ideas. So the first thing we have to do, this recipe is a little bit different than your usual. We have a cup of shortening here, and we did discuss this before. I use this organic all vegetable shortening. I'm not sure if I showed you. It works just as well as Crisco, but it's palm oil instead of hydrogenated. So let's turn this on. We're going to let it melt, and then it just needs to cool for a minute. So this isn't like traditional gingerbread recipes that you just mix everything up like a normal cookie. It'll take a minute. Probably melt better if I just leave it be. And you can see that it melts clear. I feel better about using this kind of shortening. I'm sure shortening overall is not really good for you, but if you do have to use it, this is the kind to use. And there's just something about it. It doesn't come out the same without shortening. I've tried recipes, that were somewhat healthier, but they don't get the same texture, and some things just can't be changed like that, especially traditional recipes. Now I'm going to a showing of It's a Wonderful Life, so we're going to make these gingerbread into bell shapes. But this cookie recipe is good for anything. In fact, I made a gingerbread house with this recipe too, so it was nice and sturdy and it worked out fine. We're almost there. And then make sure it's all the way. We don't want to leave lumps, although I'm sure it'll melt in. Alright, so we're going to turn this off and just let it cool slightly. It doesn't have to cool all the way, but we just want it to cool down before we add our ingredients. So while our shortening's cooling a little bit, what I have here is 5 cups of flour. And to this flour, we're going to add a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. Now these are our various spices. This is what makes up gingerbread. So in this I have 2 teaspoons of powdered ginger, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and 1 teaspoon of ground cloves. And this is what makes it so nice. Now I'm going to use this whisk. Just aerate it a little bit, mix it all in. Oh, it smells very nice. I, for one, am a ginger lover. Now, I don't know if we ever talked about nutmeg before. This is a whole nutmeg, and this is what I use, a grater, to use it. It's so much better than the regular powdered nutmeg. It's so fresher, and if you see this in the store, give it a whirl. Try it. It really makes a difference in how everything tastes that asks for nutmeg. Alright, so now we're going to go back to our shortening. Alright, so we're back to our shortening, and what we're going to do, we have a cup of sugar here. We're going to just add this all to the pan. This is how it works. We have a cup and a quarter of molasses. Now you might notice this looks a little light. What I did was I mixed regular molasses with a light corn syrup. And it's just my preference. I like it because it makes a bit of a lighter gingerbread in color. Aesthetically, when you're making cookies, I just like the color. Some people like it the darker the better, and then you can use corn syrup if you're out of molasses or don't have molasses. And dark or light, it's your preference. It will still come out all right. And then we're going to add 2 eggs. And we just want to beat them up a little bit, just so we know they're going to mix in good. That should be all right. And we want to give this a good mix. The second I smell ginger and molasses, it definitely smells like Christmas. Last year I made a huge gingerbread church, and it was so Christmassy to do something like that. Alright, we just want to get this good and incorporated. So from our flour mixture, we're going to try now, it doesn't have to be exact, we're going to add about 4 cups of our flour mixture into this. So we're just going to hold back about a cup or so to see how it is. Alright. Probably going to be a bit of a hard stir. I haven't made it since last year, you'd think I would remember. Now this recipe does call for 5 cups to 5.5 cups of flour. So it really is, if you've baked before, you know it really just matters how the dough feels. And I know that's a hard one for some people that don't bake, but you could tell if it's dry and it doesn't need more, or if it's very wet and you feel it does need that extra half a cup. That's why they tell you the 2 different amounts. And I think what we'll do, because this is very hard to mix in all that flour, is bring it over to our stand mixer and mix in the rest of the flour. So we can get a nice smooth dough out of this. We don't want lumps. It actually looks pretty good. Seems to be the right texture. If you notice, it's a little wet and a little sticky, but we still have that extra cup that has to go in. Alright, let's bring it over to the stand mixer. Alright, so we're going to put this mixture in the stand mixer. I find it much easier if we take the hook off. Now I am using the dough hook instead of kneading it. You could knead it on a board if you don't have a mixer and knead in that last cup of flour mixture. But I have a couple stand mixers because I do a lot of this kind of baking. So I'm just trying to get it so you can see this, but get it all out of this pan and into this bowl. And it certainly smells like gingerbread already. We want every last drop. We need a lot of cookies this season. Lots of parties. Alright. So we'll put our dough hook on first. And then we're just going to put a little bit more of our flour mixture, a little at a time. And we'll see how it looks from there. And you can see it starts to come together. I was thinking it might need that extra half a cup, but I don't know, and now it's looking how it should. Give it a few more whirls and then I'll drop down the sides. I want to make sure it's getting all that flour incorporated. This actually looks like a very nice dough. It's a little sticky, but I think that's how we want it. Now we're just going to keep it on this hook till we can't see the flour anymore. It does appear to be a little sticky now that it is incorporated. I think we're going to have to go with that extra half a cup of flour. We'll do a little at a time though to see. You can just see if you tried to roll it out, it would be a little too sticky. And we don't want to have to add so much extra flour while we're rolling it out. We'll put a little on the board, but I always go a little at a time because you can add more, but you certainly can't take it out. Right, let's scrape down the side again and see how it goes. That's looking a little better. It's still stuck to the sides a little bit, but it's got more flour to incorporate. I think we're going to go with just a bit more flour. So in all, I think I've added about 1/3 of a cup more flour, not the half. A little on this side. So as I mentioned before, this is why this is wonderful. So we're going to roll this right out. Most recipes, they're a little crumbly and then you have to put them in the fridge and wait a few hours to even overnight. But that's what's really good about Wilton recipes. Generally, you can use them right away. Alright, so we'll get our cutting board out and get some cookies going. Alright, now we're going to roll it out. We're going to flour our board. Somewhere in the middle, not light, not heavy. And I'm going to go over as far as I can because I'd like to get as much rolled out at a time. And with a nice floured hand, we're going to, this is a silicone roller, but you still have to flour it. Even though it's my favorite, it can still stick. So we won't take the whole gingerbread at a time. I'd like to do half, but let's see how it comes out here. Maybe we'll try a hunk. I don't want to put it down until it's together. It's still a little bit wet, but this is the consistency I want. I want it to be a nice sticky. Alright, make sure we get it there. Let's put it down. We'll press it out a little bit. What we're looking for is about a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch thickness. So I always try to roll it all ways to get it kind of even. See, I'll move this so it doesn't end up on the floor. I've been known to do that. Now this seems to be a very good dough. It's a little soft, but I think it's because it's gingerbread. It's its own thing. Now you could certainly make them thicker and bigger if you wanted. A 1/4 inch is kind of standard. I don't like too thin of cookies because I don't like them too crisp. I like them somewhere in the middle. And you'll see I pat the dough as I go along. I can tell by the feel, like this is a little thinner than the middle. So I have to work on getting the middle out a little bit. We'll give it a little extra press there. Now, not to worry if they don't come up when you cut them. I use a little spatula for that. That still feels a little thick to me. That's better. Alright. So I told you we were going to make bells today. I figured I was going to a showing of It's a Wonderful Life. And you know every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. So that's what I was going for. And I would like to have some of these for a cookie swap also. So I'm going to make as many as I can. And we will decorate them as pretty as can be. There's very few people that don't like gingerbread at Christmas. Alright, so we're at the end of our dough, and this dough did make about 7 dozen, maybe 7.5 dozen cookies. Now, I will roll this out again, re-roll it once, but after that I feel like it gets a little tough with the added flour and the re-rolling and everything. So what I usually do, because we did talk about this was sometimes a little wet dough, I use a little spatula for any that don't come up on their own. And you can just play with the shape. And these are going to go into a 375 degree oven for 6 minutes. For some reason 6 minutes is the magic number. So I'll see you back here to make some frosting. Alright, so for our cookies we're just going to make some royal icing. These particular cookies I'm just making white icing, and I think you'll see the nice contrast with the gingerbread when we're doing them. So I have here 4 cups of confectioner's sugar, and I'm sifting it. Now this is a wicked pain to do, but it's really important because if you don't, you end up with lumps in your icing, and it really can just ruin the effect. So usually I can just hit this down, but the whole kitchen's going to be covered in sugar. It's just one of those important steps if you want it to look right. And I hope it's going in the bowl. I can't see over there. Because see, I don't know if you can see the lumps we have in there. That would end up in your cookies. So you can mush that right through. Now royal icing is pretty easy to make. It's not the best tasting thing, but it looks really good and it colors very well, and it's perfect for cookies like this. So this is our 4 cups of sifted, more or less because it's all over the kitchen, powdered sugar. To this we're going to add 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. You could pick this up at A.C. Moore or Michael's or anything. Again, this is a Wilton product, and they just make really good things. They've been cooking all these years, so we're going to do 3 tablespoons. And to that, we're going to add 5 tablespoons of water. Now this again is one of those recipes, it's just one of those things, you just know if it looks right, so we'll be showing you. Now I'm going to put this on, but this takes a good 7 minutes to mix up, to make sure it's incorporated in the right texture. So we'll come back in 7 minutes and we'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so you can see this is what we're looking for. This actually took 8 minutes. Now if you have a stand mixer like this, 8 minutes on low. If you're using a hand portable mixer, it could take up to 10 minutes. But this is what we're looking for, a nice stiff peak, which means it holds its peak. So it's not real runny or anything. Alright, we need every drop, we got a lot of cookies. Alright, so we're going to fill our piping bag. We put our coupler and our tip in, and I think I've showed you this before, but I put it in a cup so it'll stand up so I can fill it easier. Alright, let me move this over a little. I know it's hard with the bowl in front, but I'm going to put probably about half of this in there. If you fill it too much, it comes out the top and your hand gets to hurting, and it's easier if you do that. I don't like to have to fill it twice, but it can be cumbersome. Alright, so we'll go over and start decorating some cookies. So here were some of my ideas. See, the white does contrast really well with the gingerbread, and I like that a lot. I do wish I had a more delicate hand, but you can see they look very pretty all together. And there's really, you could do anything you wanted. Even if you wanted, you could color the icing. I just really like the white with the gingerbread color. And as you can see, I did add half corn syrup and half molasses, and it's just a perfect color gingerbread to me. But surely if you like them darker, lighter, you could go either way, more molasses or more corn syrup or whatever floats your boat. This is just the color I like. So I'm trying to come up with different designs, which it's not as easy as it sounds when you have this many cookies. But it's really just like playing with it a little bit. Little of this and a little of that. I don't think anybody will care as long as they're tasty. So I have about 7 more dozen cookies to go, and I guess that's it for the show. We'll see you next time on Bake Good.
Thank you.